thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Jason Barris. I am a Senior VP over here at Infragistics. With me today is Brian Lagunas, Senior Product Manager, Senior Product Owner, all things. If you have any question, ask Brian. He's on the chat. He is on the Q&A line. So please use his brain today. I believe Zdravko, our team lead for App Builder, will be joining us as well, and some other folks to answer questions. So you've got the product team folks, and you've got Brian, and you got myself. I'm going to focus on just doing the webinar, and we will not only give you a great demo today, but answer any questions that you might have around App Builder, Infragistics controls, Blazor. It doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do today is look at the Blazor and App Builder overview. Then we're just going to go through a demo, logging into App Builder, looking at templates, layouts, connecting to data, generating code, and then we will wrap up. Some housekeeping, ask questions in the Q&A or chat, and the recording will be sent out later. Also in the slides, so you're going to get the slides and the recording in an email, either later today or tomorrow. We'll paste some links into the chat as we go on, because there are playlists up on YouTube on the Infragistics channel. So there is a lot of information about App Builder, how to use App Builder, and we've done a ton of webinars, and we continue to do webinars every couple of weeks. So I think the next couple webinars are around master detail apps. We're going to do a webinar on building an end-to-end web API and just some other things. So it'll be pretty fun coming up on what we're doing here with App Builder. So why do you need App Builder? And you'll see this by the end of the webinar if you've never looked at App Builder before, is that HTML and CSS are hard. So we do a survey. You're going to answer some survey questions if you choose during this webinar. And we collect all this data. So we collected a bunch of data for the first half of the year, and we kind of munged it all together to see what was going on. And some of the results are, developers spend basically 70+%, 75+% of your time either working with CSS and HTML or doing screen design and layout, and that takes up 70+% of your time. So if most of your time is spent doing screen layout and screen design, that's probably not a good thing. What we want to do is remove this number, maybe make it 5%, maybe make it 10% working with CSS, HTML, working with screen design and layout, because with App Builder, it's a WYSIWYG. If we looked at something like a Windows form survey and we had the same questions, how much time do you spend in Windows Designer generated code, and how much time do you spend on your screen layout? It's probably like 10%. And really, that's where we want to get with App Builder. We believe we can save you, based on all of our research and surveys, 80% of your time on what App Builder provides, which is screen layout, WYSIWYG, data binding, theming, custom CSS, routing and navigation. All those things are part of the product. And then designers are a real luxury. Do you work with the design teams? Another question that we ask. And only 26% of developers work with a design team. So nearly 3 out of 4 of us don't have a designers. They are a luxury. So either you work at a big enterprise and you're not one in a enterprise, and you have a shared design team. So you've got a bunch of different people who service multiple groups, so you really don't get their time. And if you really are lucky, you might have a designer on your team. Infragistics, we're a design and develop company. We have lots of designers, right? So, just on App Builder and Indigo Design, we probably have 6 or 7 designers that work on product, that work on, interaction design, UX design, visual design, and the whole gamut. We have other products like Slingshot, 4 to 6 dedicated designers doing everything from user testing to interaction design to visual design. So, but our company is a little bit different. Most companies, based on our data, aren't. So let's take a look and see how you can use App Builder to really start to peel away some of that time and get it back. So here I am at the Infragistics website. What I did is I went to design and development, and I just selected App Builder, and you end up at the App Builder page. So, there's no audio. Oh, okay. So that's not, the audio works fine on the webinar. That's cool. So what I'm going to do, and this is what you guys should do too, is just go ahead and click sign in. If you've never signed in before, you're going to have a slightly different, welcome experience, but this is essentially the gist of what's happening. You can use Google, Microsoft, Apple, or your Infragistics ID. I'll just sign in with my Infragistics ID. And the first thing that we get to is sort of this workbench homepage, which is my projects up here in the upper left. And what we offer you here on the left-hand menu is sort of your recent applications, your deleted applications. We have this concept of workspaces. So you can create a workspace and invite others. So let's say you're working with 3 different teams and you don't want the entire organization looking at your designs. You might create a workspace for team 1. Just invite those team members. They're the only ones that have access to the work that you're doing there with building apps and et cetera with team 2 and team 3.
Hey, Jason. Yeah. I hate to interrupt you. It seems chat is disabled. Do you have since you're hosting, I think you're the only one with permission to enable the chat. Do you see an option for that?
Let's see. No. Disable annotation. That's weird. Who can see messages? Recording is on. Is chat working?
Okay, chat works now.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yep, cool. All right. So no wonder there's been no chats. Pile it on. All right. So essentially down on the lower left help center desktop app, when you register for a trial, you can download the desktop app, and essentially it's everything in App Builder that you're going to see today, but wrapped in an Electron app. So you have a nice icon and all that good stuff. So it's real easy to use if you don't want to use a browser. What I end up finding myself with like 30 App Builder windows open, just like 50 other tabs. So the app actually gives you a little bit more certainty. But what we do here is with the getting started, we've got a few sample applications that you can just kick off to open up. If you click the new application button, you're presented with a list of all of the default templates. We went through hundreds and hundreds of examples of different customer apps that we've collected over the years, screenshots and whatnot, and we boiled it down to these common layouts. So we have artificial intelligence named Andy that did this from the design team. And so now if you want to do your common header overlay nav content, just use this template. If you want to use the Holy Grail, use this template. Nav centered content and footer, use this template. You can also just click apps here, sample apps, or go to import designs, and we have connectors for Sketch and Adobe XD using our design system to load this in. The first thing I'm going to do, however, is just click try sample on the team collaboration app, and we'll look at this real quick. Now, for those of you that have already seen demos of App Builder, you know that the left-hand menu is where you've got your screens. It's a single-page application framework using Blazor, Angular. React is coming soon. You have your controls in your toolbox. You have data connections. We've got full theming support with custom themes, and then different assets that you could use across your workspace, so images and things like that. But here's the secret sauce. The secret sauce is that when you're creating an application, you create your master view, you've got child pages, all this is done through, add child view or add any new view. It's a WYSIWYG drag and drop. So what I can do is select items. I can move items around on my screen. I can go to my toolbox and I can drag and drop new items anywhere in my application, just like I would Windows Forms or WPF. And I have the seamless experience of the WYSIWYG with property editors on the right-hand side. Now, the beauty of this is that in real time, you can preview the application. So this is what the application will actually, look like when it's running. There's a few things here to note. If I want to go down here, I can see all of the different screens, or in the upper left, all the different screens that are in my app, or I can use the built-in routing and navigation of the app. I'm going to show you how to do this in a second. But what's really cool is I can switch over to code view, and this is all of my Blazor code for this application. So we're WYSIWYG, drag and drop with property editor, live preview, then ultimately code. Now, when I go back and click edit, if I select the framework I want, Blazor Angular, we're focused on Blazor today, I can publish this to GitHub or download the zip. I'm going to go ahead and download the zip file, team collaboration, and I'm going to extract this here. And there we go. Extract this guy. And you're going to see that I've got all of my project data all auto-generated by App Builder. So let's open this guy up. We'll hit run and we'll see what we get. And it opened up here on my other screen. Let's wait for it to load up here. Push this guy over here. I'm just going to hit run. What this is actually doing is if we drill into dependencies, it's actually going to make sure that the Night UI Blazor dependencies are installed. We've got 22.1.41 here. I'm going to click team collaboration, and this will go ahead and start up. And you'll see that everything that we saw in App Builder is now here in a real live running Blazor application. So all of the interactions are here. You'll notice as I select through and I click the different items, I've got my lists here that are all data bound. I've got different buttons, different drop downs, different dialogues, etc. So all of this was built when I just drag and drop, create the app. So like, how could we do something like this? So this one, maybe took a few hours to build, maybe less, dragging and dropping and doing all that good stuff. We're going to do something a little bit simpler. I'm going to go ahead and close this guy out. Click don't save. We don't care about it. And let's go back to App Builder. Now, when you're in the App Builder, you just click the kebab menu in the upper left and you get back to your workbench area. Because we have an app, we don't have that getting started thing. So what I'm going to do is click new app and I'm going to go to a template. And here let's do the header plus nav plus content. So this is going to be a new app for me. And what we do here by default, when you select a template, is we add a few default screens. So you can see that I've got my master view, and the master view has a views container. And then inside that views container is where you set interaction. So for example, when you click view 2 over here, you have some interactions. In this case, you want to navigate. Where are you going to navigate to? We're going to navigate to view 2. So basically that's kind of how this whole thing works. So in this case, I've got my view 1, I've got my view 2. You'll see view 1 has some text there. View 2 has nothing. Now what we do on empty states when you add them is you've got this pick layout button and you get similar options to what you had when you started a new project. So let's say I'm doing a new screen here, view 2, and let's say I want to do a grid and a chart like master detail. I just select this guy and it's got the layout here for me. So what I can do on this view 2 is go to my toolbox. I'm going to search for a grid and I'm going to drag this grid onto the screen. So just like that, I've got a data grid. And then if we click over to the right-hand side, you'll see that we have different options for this data grid. So I can set the data source for my data grid. I happen to have a bunch of data sources here. I'm going to show you how to add a data source in a second, like a new data source. But let's just use this Northwind customers data source. You can see that my data is in the grid. The other thing that we have is this feature option where I click the plus sign and you can select the different types of features that you might want with this particular grid. Once you add a feature, you can also disable the feature by literally just, clicking the X and it goes away. Another way to add a component besides doing something like I just did by searching in the toolbox is when you're in the WYSIWYG, if you hit Control E, you can start typing and the controls will come up. So in this case, let's say I want to do a button. You can see that the buttons come up, the button options. What I want to do here is I want to do a chart. So I'm going to go ahead and select chart. A chart shows up and I've got some options here for chart. What type of chart do I want to do? Line chart, point chart, spline areas. I always like spline areas. They're pretty nice. You can change the palettes that we have. So we've got a default palette, a colorblind palette, or you can add your own custom palette. I'll just leave it where it's at. And then you can do something like a title. And I think this is movie revenue, like so. And you can also do things like set a few customizations, like if you want to change let's say you have a lot of data and you want to change how labels are rotated. You can do different titles on your vertical axis. You can change the intervals. You can do a lot of different customizations, but that's across the board. So now I have this guy. It looks pretty good. Now let's say I want to change the way it looks. So here we ship with some default themes: Material, Fluent, and Bootstrap. I just got an email the other day. Customers looking for Fluent UI in Blazor. Yes, we fully support Fluent UI. So I'm just going to select the Fluent Light look and feel here. Doesn't look much different. If I do Material Dark, definitely looks different, right? So if you want that dark theme look, we've got the Fluent Dark. And then if you want Bootstrap, we support Bootstrap as well. But, I'm a traditional Blazor guy, so I'm just going to go with my Fluent Light look and feel. Now, when I go to preview this, you'll see that I've got my grid all nice here. If I click view 1, this was that default screen. View 2, like so. And view 3, like so. Just like that. Now, if I just go back, click edit, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to download this guy. This is going to be called Untitled App Blazor. And let's open him, extract all. And I'm going to open this guy up in Visual Studio. And you can see that everything we just designed with a few drags and drops magically looks beautiful in Blazor in your own custom app. So I didn't have to worry about layout. I didn't have to worry about resizing. I didn't have to worry about anything. It's all taken care of for me. So let's move this guy over. And you can see here's my Blazor app. This is my view 2. This is the grid. This is my movie revenue chart. Now, if I want to take advantage of some of the grid's features, like for example, we set Excel style filtering, which comes with sorting, grouping, pinning, column, moving, all the good stuff. So for summaries, let's say we want to do a count and I want to group by this guy and I want to click apply. So you see count here 91 and I'm grouped by those features within the grid. You got collapse and expand, got column moving. If I want company to be pinned over to the left, I'm going to pin this guy to the left. And let's also do a group by country. So now we're doing city and country. So pretty slick the way this thing works. And actually, if I go back to city, I want to ungroup this. Country actually makes more sense. And I'm going to do a quick column resize like so. And beautiful. I have a beautiful grid and I've got a beautiful chart underneath with all the features that you would expect inside the chart, like zooming, pinch, works perfectly on mobile, etc. And then because this is a collapsible and expandable menu, it'll all collapse and expand. So I did this with my Fluent theme and I applied it. I just downloaded the code and ran it. Now, if you choose to use GitHub and you were not at our previous webinar on what's new in 22.1, we've improved the way that GitHub works. So now it's like literally impossible to overwrite code. Like if you're making changes to the client, making changes in GitHub, App Builder's getting updated, you have complete control over merges, what gets merged, pull requests, etc. So that's been vastly improved as well. So now let's take a look at data access. So I do have here a view 3, which we haven't used yet. I'm going to go ahead and just do a default layout. I'm going to do a Control E, and I'm going to put a grid in here. Now, when you're doing data binding, you have the data tab on data bound controls. And you can see I got a bunch of stuff here. I got remote JSON files. I've got REST files, etc. What I'm going to do is show you how to add a couple different options here. So this is the data tab. When you click the plus sign, you select REST API. Now, keep in mind, this is the web. So you're dealing with, OData, JSON data, etc. I'm going to go over to my browser and I'm going to go to excel2json.io. This is an app. Brian built it end to end. And what it allows you to do is upload Excel files from your computer and then convert them to JSON or create files or create JSON on the fly. But a new feature was recently added where you can save all of your files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this customers guy here, or actually, no, let's do FinTech 2500. And I'm going to get this URL and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to App Builder. I'm going to add a URL. I'm going to paste this in. I'm going to click done and it's up there. Now it knows my URL. I'm going to say select data We're going to call this FinTech data, like so. I'm going to select all the fields, and this has a ton of different fields, and I'm going to click done. So now over on my data menu, I've got my FinTech data, data source 3. I didn't name it very well, but let's go to our data tab. So I'm going to scroll down, go to data source 3, select FinTech data, and now this is in my grid. So now when I click preview, you can see that all of this FinTech data is there. And the beauty of this is it generates all of the stuff that you need in the columns and all of the settings on the grid. Like I didn't do anything here. I'm just going to go back to edit, and I'm going to download this guy again. And you'll see what we're doing in terms of this type of data access. So I'm going to extract all, extract this guy, and untitled. Yep, local DB does work, works perfect, Norm. So you don't need to go to the web, but you know, our survey says most developers are using web APIs. I'm going to show you local data in a second. So let's go to view 3, and you can see this is all the goods here. And what this is doing is we created a get FinTech data function. So let's go to get FinTech data, and we're actually going out to the cloud to get this. So what Norm is saying is, wait a minute, I don't have my data in the cloud. I've got a local SQL server, and that's how I do my data access. Great, no problem. So let me go ahead and open up my SQL Server Manager here, and you'll notice I've got this guy. It's a test database I've got on a server here, and it's essentially local host, right? This is, I have to be on the VPN to make sure this works. So let me make sure I'm on the VPN. Yes, I am. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio, and I am going to open up my Northwind Cloud app. And if you guys recall from previous webinars, and I go here and I go to Northwind Cloud, I have this deployed to the Azure, to an Azure website, to the Azure cloud. So I created a web API with Entity Framework, and I just pushed this out. So if I want to do an API get customers, click try it out, click execute. This is actually in the cloud. So when I scroll up, it says northwindcloud.azurewebsites.net Swagger, and now it went and got my data. But I want to do this local host. So in my app settings, I am going to copy this, open up a notepad here so you can see. We're going to localhost, and I've got my data. My username is dev, and my password is a bunch of V's and B's. All right. So that's where this is actually going to go. Now, when you look at Program CS, what are we doing here? So I'm actually swapped out my Azure connection to my IG connection. And this is all of the APIs that I created. So these are, I got an API customers, product list, etc. Now to use localhost, I'm saying to use cores, and I have an allow all rule. And that's all you got to do. Say if app is development, allow all after you tell it to use cores. And I created this guy with my builder.services.add cores, and I'm allowing any origin, allowing any header, allowing any method. And, pretty much it'll work on your dev box or it'll work on localhost. And then what you can do is set up the right security setting for your own SQL Server. But all this is happening locally. So now I'm just going to hit run, and I'm going to kick this guy off. Now, this is the same thing you just saw, but it's localhost 44349. Now we go to customers, try it out, execute, and it'll load it up here. There we go. There's my customers' data. So how do I use this local inside of App Builder? I use it the same way I would use a cloud service. So I just copy my Swagger definition. I'm going to go back to App Builder. We're going to create a new app, and I'm going to call this guy, we'll just use this template, and this will be local data. I'm going to go to the data tab. We're already at the data tab. I'm going to click the plus sign, REST API, open API Swagger, add my URL, click or paste it in, and boom, it's same thing as I got before. Configure endpoints, where 4439. Let's go get customers. Let's view details. Wow, look at that. This is a website in the cloud, but it's accessing my local data. So all the gurus on the product team said, hey, this is no problem. You can make this happen. And that's what we did. So I'm going to click select data. Oh, and this is what's interesting as well. You'll notice API employees, if there is a problem, like I'm going to hit send here. There's a problem here. I don't know what the problem is, but since we know the schema from the Swagger definition, we'll create mock data for you. Now, customers, when I click send, it got the customer data fine. Let's click select data, select all, select all, select all, done, view one. Oops, let's go here, go to view one. I'm going to delete this stuff. And let's do Control E. We'll do a grid. I got my grid. Let's go to data, scroll all the way down. There's my data source 4 for customers. And now this is actually getting customers from localhost, just like that. So local data, remote JSON, remote Swagger, etc. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want in terms of data access with this. And obviously, again, this is the web. So when you look at the code, you're like, oh, we have a service. So this service is called Get API Customers. And what Get API Customers is doing is it's pointing to localhost, loading that stuff up into an object and then binding it to your grid. So that's essentially what we're doing here. All right. So with that, we are out of time for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I think the next step is to get App Builder today. It looks like we've got a lot of questions that Brian answered. Thank you, Brian, for that. And yeah, the poll just kicked off. Thank you, JJ or Jesse or whoever clicked the poll. If you guys can go ahead and answer the poll, it helps us to continue to refine what we do with the product and understand what you're doing. And then we share this poll data, like not every webinar, but like once we get a handful more webinars, we will continue to, share out the data. So to get started, sign up at appbuilder.indigo design or just go to Infragistics homepage, click design and development, App Builder. We've got playlists up on YouTube. So I'm going to copy this playlist here. And let's put this guy here. We'll copy this playlist and we'll put him in the chat so everyone can get to that playlist and watch some videos. And Dennis, no, it has nothing to do with WASM, Dennis, in terms of SQL Server. Keep in mind, there's no way to access SQL from a browser. This is working in a browser, no matter what, be it WASM or a Blazor server. So you can't just say, hey, connection string equals blah, blah, blah. You need HTTP. The web requires HTTP or a collection or something or some middleware to get that down there. And the app also needs to be on mobile. So yeah, we support responsive. All those layouts are responsive. But it really depends. Like, so the grid, for example, like how do you want your grid to look on mobile? You might have to do something custom there. We do have the ability for you to do custom templates for responsive web. But yeah, the layout will still look good on mobile. All right, so we've got some folks answering the poll. If you guys could continue to jump in on this poll and answer, it's like 10 questions. It's the limit on what we need here or what we're allowed to do.
Hey, Jason, there's one question I didn't get a chance to answer yet. Maybe you could handle it live. It asked if the App Builder UI is localized for different languages. So if you're a Spanish speaker, will the UI that you're building with be in Spanish, or what languages do we support?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I think it supports all the same languages that the controls to, which is like 13 different languages. But shoot me an email and I'll tell you exactly what that list is for App Builder. I know it's Korean and Japanese. And I think we did the rest because we support like 13 or 15 different languages for the controls. But yeah, shoot me an email, jasonb@infragistics.com, or shoot Brian an email and we'll answer that one. I want to thank everyone. I appreciate your time today, and we will see you at the next webinar.